Good morning. You're listening to Insurance Matchmaking, your path to health, life, and Medicare coverage with Matt Libby Insurance. And now, sharing his knowledge, here's your host, Matt Libby.
Well, welcome back to Insurance Matchmaking. Been kind of an eventful week already this week. Not insurance-wise, just a weird, got to the office yesterday. As I'm recording this, it was yesterday. This might be in the future a bit, but I noticed it seemed kind of warm when I walked in the office. I was like, oh, great. Air conditioner's out. So I go and I look at the thermostat, and the thermostat says, yep, need to replace batteries. So I found batteries that were in there. The thermostat itself had 4 AA's and one of those 2032, button batteries. And I thought, well, I don't have one of those. So I ran down to the Dollar General and I decided, well, since I'm there, I'm going to go ahead and get the button battery and the AA's. And because I had changed those AA's recently, so I figured they were not the issue. But I went ahead, got the button battery to AA's, and I said, since I'm here, I might as well just go ahead and get some AA's too. There are some things that use the AA's. So I get there, and I change the batteries out. Can't turn the thing on. There's no temperature reading on the thermostat. I was like, well, did something not connect? And then it started talking about an internal replace batteries in the interior sensor. Well, so I Googled, checked on YouTube, and everything's talking about, and one of them saying it's inside unit of the, you got to take the panel off. And it's like, well, I don't know that I want to do that. And so I called my property manager at Putnam Properties and say, hey, my AC's not working. And they say, well, we'll either get a maintenance guy over there. Sometimes they know some things, or we may have to call in an HVAC. And then they called me back about an hour, half hour or so later and said, we're going to send a HVAC person. They should be there by the end of the day. And I'm like, I hope they come sooner than the end of the day because it's starting to get a little warm inside. Fortunately, I had my fan that I have by my desk, and so it blew cool air on me. But the air conditioner guy goes up, walks in, and says, where's the thermostat at? And I said, well, it's over in this room here. And he looks over next to the desk that I was sitting at and says, there's your interior unit. And I'm going, went over, pulled the thing off, two AA's out, put 2 batteries in, and boom, thermostat says, hey, this is how hot it is in here. So it had gotten up to, I think, 87 in the office. It was a little warm, but it was back down to the 73 setting by the time I left the office. So that was fortunate. So it wasn't too bad. Didn't have any clients in the office that day, so I didn't have to worry about clients overheating yesterday, but that was a fun go-around. So anyway, I'm not sure when this episode's going to air. That's why I mentioned, I said that, the issue I had yesterday was yesterday as I'm recording this. But the last couple of weeks, last week when I recorded, I had Stacey and Clint in from All Good Family Pharmacy and Family Wellness Pharmacy. And we talked a lot of Part D stuff, and I don't think we finished even after doing 2 shows. I think I'll probably have them back on at a later date. But 2 great shows, so I'm actually a show up on my recording. So I could have skipped coming in to record today, but it's always good to have one in reserve because things come up. I do have an out-of-town trip coming up here in the near future. I'm going to go to Tupelo, birthplace of Elvis. But anyway, that's not why I'm going, but it's a sales training that I'm going to with the group I work with. They're headquartered there in Tupelo, and so I'm going to go there, hopefully get some training to maybe help me do a little bit better when it comes to the telesales stuff, where I get calls in from leads and things from different ads that are around the country. I'm still going to do my, as I do now, meeting with people local and taking that time to be that local agent, but to supplement that business does okay. One of the things I've been working on doing the last few years is building my agency, not just being a local agent, which is fine. But when you open an office and you start hiring staff, you start having a lot more expenses. And one of the things I want to do is, I mentioned the telesales part, is to be able to, that's not my strong suit. I can sell over the phone, but the telesales, it's a little tougher market, I guess I'd say, because you're calling people who are just calling for information, and your goal is to sell something because the time is the old saying, time is money. So you want that time to be efficient. You want it to be income producing. And the other is, I need to get good at that so I can train new agents to be able to be successful, to be able to make this a successful career. I've done well. I was fortunate. My wife was working full time when I started in this business. I retired from the Army. I had a check to come in each month from that. So it's like, I didn't have to kill myself to earn a living when I started out. I was able to just kind of go and just, and it's so funny, and actually the founder of the company that I'm going to meet with in Tupelo, one of the things he always says, this is not a get-rich-quick business. It is a get-rich-quick business, but it's not a get-rich-quick business. And that's one of the things that's always been the goal, especially with the Medicare market, is we get renewals for the business we wrote yet today and yesterday and 3 years ago. So I've got people that I've sold a policy to over 10 years ago now. That was one of the things that came up in a conversation recently was, I had a young man called me, was making some changes on insurance, and we realized that I kept thinking of him as a young man in his 20s, and he was actually 36 because the first time I dealt with him was when he was 26 and went off his parents' insurance. And now I was talking to him 10 years later, and it just seemed like, it was 3-4 years ago. So, and then I had a call from one of my very first clients. I mean, I wouldn't say he wasn't my first, but he was probably in the first 10. And I think it was he wanted to drop a couple policies, but a couple other policies still had, but it needed to know how to cancel those policies. But we were trying to remember, where we met at, because I met him somewhere after he got off work. I can remember it was somewhere on Clinton Highway in northeast Knoxville, but I can't remember what business I met him. I mean, it would have been like a Wendy's or a Pizza Hut or something where we could just go in and sit down at a table. And at that time, I don't think I was using a laptop. I think I was using my iPad to do stuff. I might have had a laptop with me. I don't remember. But we were able to conduct the business then, and he's still been my client. This is back in 2014, so it's been over 11 years. So. And I get a little bit, some of those policies that I wrote 11 years ago, it's so funny because I'll get my commission statement and there's 21 cents and 75 cents and $1.33. But those all add up. So as I was saying, it's you build that income, so you have a steady income, and that's one thing that's been fortunate lately I'm earning a decent living now. But if I want to grow as an agency, I really have to multiply my number of clients. And that's kind of what I'm saying is I've been building my business by addition. I want to at least get to where I'm building it by multiplication. And one of those, I can say, I'm too old to do it now, but or have someone, the next generation, take over for me, whether it's a member of the family decides to get in the business, or it's just somebody that grows up in my business and kind of becomes family because being the relationship in the company, but to take over the company and then start building it exponentially. And that's one of the reasons why I'm going to the meeting in Tupelo, because that's what he has done. I'm going to learn from people half my age or maybe even younger than my children because they're doing it and they're being successful at it and they have the skills to teach it. And that's one of the things I've dealt with, with my son's talked about jobs he's been on. He'll talk about, there was this guy who was like your age, but it's like I had to tell him how to do everything because he had the skills, and he's doing very well in his line of work now. And because he learned it and applied a good work ethic and has moved up the channels there. So it's been, I understand, I don't have a problem with being taught by younger people, and I think some of that kind of reflects back to my military career. But we also kind of went the other way, was, we had to take orders from those young lieutenants that we knew more than, but they thought they knew more. It's kind of like, you do with your teenagers. They know so much more than you, and it's like, it's so funny that I'm trying to saying that, when you're 25 or when you're 40, you realize, how did my dad get so much smarter? Because when you were 15, they were an idiot, right? So it's good. I don't have a problem learning from younger people. I watch a lot of their YouTubes and trying to keep up with in fact, actually, one of the things I'm starting to work on now is trying to get studied up on the AI stuff. There's so many things that I see other agents using in their business for polishing, the videos that they present, or just to make a better presentation for like the Medicare 101s and things like that to do. And I am planning some things like that. I mentioned the Medicare 101. I don't have anything scheduled at the library or any of the public venues, but I have room at my office to do this. So I think I'll set something up maybe for I was going to say later in July. We're in July. Might be in August. Before I start doing, and I may still set some stuff up at the library in the Cumberland Business Incubator sometime around either late August, early September. Might do something in October. Kind of what I'm thinking in October, I want to try to set up some meetings with my clients, or I may open it up to the public. It's very touchy if you just open up the public, if you're just talking, if you're talking about Medicare plans. So I can say, all right, on this day here, all my clients who have a Humana plan, I'm going to do a briefing to kind of talk about some of the changes that are coming on your plan. And then another one for my United Healthcare, another for my Blue Cross, another for Aetna clients, just Cigna. I want to get all the names out there. I'm not playing favorites here, but let them know, okay, this is what's changing for your plans. And I can do that after October 1st. We're not legally can't tell people about what their plan is going to be before that October 1st. We usually find out. And I'm starting to get some emails now. We're in that recertification time. I have completed one of my carrier certs that lets me go ahead and streamline it and get that knocked out early, but I do need to sign up to take what we call the AHIP, the American Health Insurance Professionals Association. We have to take that test, and once we pass that test, then we have to go to take that certification to all the different carriers and then do their carrier certification. We have to do that every year, and so that's kind of how we usually spend our summer. So production gets a little slow during this time a lot because we're working on doing those certifications, but it's just they've got to be done or we're not going to be able to market those plans for the next year. But so we start finding out what's coming down the pike for those plans, but we can't share that with the public. It's kind of like we kind of sign an NDA when we sign up with them. So it looks like, I can't believe it's, when I don't have a guest, it still surprises me how quickly I get to the break. So we're going to take the break here, and we'll be right back after these commercials.
Hey guys, this is Donna from Middle Tennessee Eye Associates, and we are right in the middle of the best parts of summer. Family, fun, travel, water. But back to school is looming. So if you need new glasses, new contacts, or you would love to ditch both and just get LASIK, Dr. Alyssa Hudson and her fantastic team would love to help you. Give us a call at Middle Tennessee Eye Associates, 931-372-1994. Eye care for everyone.
Is your heart working harder than it should? Cookeville Regional Medical Center is proud to offer advanced team-based treatment for structural heart disease right here in the Upper Cumberland. Whether it's a leaky valve, a hole in the heart, or heart failure, our structural heart program brings together top specialists in cardiology, cardiac imaging, surgery, and anesthesia, working together to find the best solution for you. From innovative procedures like TAVR, MitraClip, and Watchman to traditional valve repair when needed. You don't have to travel far for world-class heart care. Meet your expert team, Drs. Brewington, Podesta, Torres, Cornell, Powell, Parsons, Carly Qualls, our structural heart coordinator, and more, all committed to keeping your heart strong, close to home. For more information, visit crmchealth.org. Again, visit crmchealth.org. Cookeville Regional, leading structural heart care in the Upper Cumberland. At Cookeville Regional, it's the way we care.
Discover the value of quality and service at Gentry's Power Equipment. Now is the perfect time to save on legendary steel tools for all your outdoor projects. As your local steel dealer, they provide expert advice and exclusive deals you won't find at big box stores. Whether you need trusted service or answers to your toughest questions, they're here to help. Gentry's Power Equipment, 755 Buffalo Valley Road, Cookeville, where big boy toys are their specialty.
And now, back to Insurance Matchmaking with Matt Libby Insurance.
All right, and we are back on Insurance Matchmaking. No guests with me this week, but hopefully should have a couple other guests signed up, and so get to hear people other than me. I was talking there just before the break, talking about the annual AHIP and recertification with the carrier plan. So one of the things, as I mentioned, I'm thinking about doing is having some meetings, especially that first part of October, because it's probably been a year since I mentioned this, but that annual election period happens from October 15th to December 7th is when we can change the enrollment for January 1st of a Medicare Advantage or a prescription drug plan, the Part D. That's what that annual enrollment period is for. And then we have the pre-AEP, as we call it, from October 1st through the 14th. We can share the plans. We can run appointments, sit down with you, show you exactly what plan we would pick for you for January 1st, but we can't, as they say, pull the trigger on that plan and enroll you in it for January 1st. A lot of confusion runs around that. I've had a question this week. Well, during this fall time, is that when I can switch my Medicare supplement? And I just immediately said no. And then I was like, oh, not exactly the right thing. What I meant to say was you can change that Medicare supplement plan any month of the year as long as you can medically qualify to change the plan. The annual enrollment period, AEP, is not the time, is not there for you to change your Medicare supplement. You can change your Medicare supplement at that time, and we do a lot because that's when people are reviewing their Medicare and they decide, oh, I don't want this drug plan, and oh, by the way, this is what I'm paying for my Medicare supplement. If you come into my office to review your Medicare and you didn't buy, even if you bought your Medicare supplement from me, if it's been a few years, the rates go up, and so by switching to another plan, a lot of times we can get a good break on that monthly premium. And we can switch to another plan. I had recently had a couple in, and that's what had happened with them. The company that they have is no longer going to be offering the plans to anybody new, so they can keep their plan. But the problem is with that, when the company decides they're no longer going to sell Medicare supplement plans, there's an ever-decreasing risk pool, and of course, everybody's always aging, but you're not getting any younger people who are generally healthier. Most people when they turn 65 don't have a lot of medical stuff going on, and I'm not saying nobody does, but across the board, most people turning 65 are just there's a lot of people are still working, and they go to the doctor a couple times a year. I mean, I'm not in the best health. I go to the doctor 4 times a year, and then sometimes a couple other times in between when something happens. Recently I had some back issues and had a respiratory whatever of about 9 months ago, I guess. So, I had to see the doctor, get prescriptions, had to go to the fall. But so, maybe 10 times in a year go see the doctor, but nothing major, no major surgeries or anything like that. So, the insurance is not paying out much. Now, when you get later in your 70s and 80s, and that's when the danger of those falls and breaking a hip. And so there's a lot of things that can cost more, as you get older. It just happens. I know it happened with my mother. She was in and out of the hospital a lot the last couple of years. Those are some expensive times. So if the only people on that Medicare supplement are in their 80s and 90s, that supplement company has to figure out a way to keep still earning an income on what they're charging for their premiums. So they raise the premiums on everybody. So instead of raising it 5% this year, well, then we're going to go 11%. In the next year, well, they really took a big loss. Now we're going to go 15%. And then the next year it's 18%. And it just keeps going and going and going. Well, if you're healthy, you have an out. You can get out of that plan and go to a plan that is much less. And then also, especially anybody who's been on Medicare for a while, if they were eligible for Medicare prior to 2020, they could have a Plan F. Those are the most expensive plans because they do not have the Part B deductible. So the expense is going to go up on those. The next most expensive is going to be Plan G because it's just like the Plan F, except for you do have the Part B deductible, which currently is $257. That generally goes up each year. But after you pay that deductible, your supplement is picking up the 20% that Medicare's not, plus the Part A deductible, which currently is $1,676. It'll be more next year, and it'll be more the year after that. And so they're paying more. And there's also what's called guaranteed issue. And that's where you say you stayed working past turning 65, but you didn't start you maybe signed up for you maybe had Medicare A and B, but then you left that employer plan. Well, you now have what's called guaranteed issue, and you can get any supplement you want because you're losing that coverage, and they have to accept you. It doesn't matter what your health is. The other one is if you move from one state to another, and this even applies if you have a Medicare Advantage, and say you move to Tennessee and you realize, oh gosh, I wish I'd gotten a Medicare supplement when when I first turned 65 instead of this advantage, because, boy, now I'm dealing with the network, or my plan wasn't any good here because none of the doctors were in network here because it was a plan that was only available in my state. It was a small, regional carrier, as we call it. That gives you a guaranteed issue because you moved. You have to replace that policy, so you can go from an Medicare Advantage to a Medicare Supplement and get it guaranteed issue. So those are some things that you want to contact us about if you moved, and you need to do that right after you moved. Not because if you move and you just call, and if some of the companies, your Medicare Advantage plan, you have to live in the service area. So even if you move from a different part of Tennessee, you move a different county. I've had clients move out of Cookeville to Sparta and had to change their Medicare Advantage plan because they moved to a different county and that plan's not available in that county. And again, that gives you a guaranteed issue. You don't have to move out of the state, but I'm just using that example because we have so many people moving into the state that you could get that guaranteed issue. But the reason I brought that up, Plan G is the guaranteed issue plan now for those that weren't eligible for Plan F. Now, some of the companies will still require you to get Plan F if that's what you had. So, or if you're eligible because of your age. So that's going to make those expensive. But you can go from a Plan F to a Plan G and lower your monthly premium because you're going to pay that deductible. You can go get a Plan N, which is very much similar to Plan G, except you have a couple co-pays for like doctor visits and emergency room. But because you're going to be paying a little bit more of your health care costs, you get a break there. And I think I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, gave the wrong numbers on the high deductible G. Currently, if you get a high deductible G, you have $2,780 out of pocket before that supplement plan starts paying their part of your health care. You could face the Part A deductible for a hospitalization because if you haven't hit that max out of pocket on that. Now, the good news is your Part B health care, you still have the Part B deductible, the $257 Part B deductible. And then Medicare starts paying 80% for that health care. So you're only paying the 20% that's left over towards that $2,780. So you may not ever hit it. I mean, yes, if you're hospitalized, you have a couple surgeries, or even probably just one surgery, you'll probably hit that max. So that high deductible G can be a great option. Couple I work with just this week, they're not quite ready. He's still working, and so they're not ready to get Part B of their Medicare just yet. Maybe before the end of the year, but right now they have a good employer plan, so they plan on staying there. But we talked about the high deductible G, and the thing is, a high deductible G, and for the man, because it's always more for men. It was about almost $100 difference. It's $90-some difference between the price of a traditional G and a high deductible G because you're taking on that extra $2,700 of out-of-pocket expense. But that's an expense you can count on. So it can be a lot better option than a zero premium Medicare Advantage plan where you're going to have out-of-pocket expenses. And most of those out-of-pocket expenses, your max out-of-pocket on an Advantage plan is more than that $2,700. So it can definitely be a good cost savings. And the other thing I always talk about with the Medicare Advantage, you should consider a hospital indemnity plan and a cancer plan to cover you against that max out of pocket, because when you get those plans, you lock in that monthly premium. It's not going to go up on you. Now, the high deductible G, yes, there will be increases on that plan. It's not going to stay at $40-some. It may be $100, 10 years from now. But if it's $100 10 years from now, that traditional G is going to be $300 to $400. So it really can help you keep your expenses down when they do put the price increases on their plans. And that's always been the case. Now, usually an F and a G plan usually will have the same the percentage increase. Plan N is usually less, or sometimes they just only do a price increase on G and not on N, and not on high deductible G. And the high deductible G is always generally going to be the lesser of increase and the lesser of, or may not even have an increase, because you're paying most of your healthcare expenses. So the insurance company may not even be really paying anything for you. They're just taking that monthly premium, so they don't need to raise the rate on it. And again, it's not just your cost, but everybody's cost. But when you go across the pool of what they're spending on that plan, if they're still making money, they're not going to raise the rate, or they're going to, the inflation increase is not going to be that much. So that's some great ways to do some savings there. One of the things I wanted to bring up, and just quickly, we're about at the end of the show here, is I think maybe it was yesterday, on a training call and talked about, because I'm not very good about it. Usually it's like, we're done. I'm ready to get done. Let's wrap it up and I'll move on to the next person and let you go. And so a lot of times I don't bring up life insurance. And one of the comments this guy made yesterday, he says, even if you just get them a $5,000 final expense plan, now they've got the money to pay for a cremation. And a $5,000 plan is not going to be that much. Maybe $20, $30 a month, if that. Probably less than that. Depending on the age, of course. And we do have two kinds of plans there that, there's actually three kinds, but you're either going to qualify on your health and have a lower rate, or you can get what we call, guaranteed issue on a final expense life insurance. It's just there's going to be limitations on when or how much it'll pay out. If you're dying in an accident, it'll pay out 100%. But in the first 2 to 3 years, if you pass away because of an illness, it's either just going to refund your premium plus interest to your beneficiary, or it's going to be a reduced payout in year 2 versus year 3 paying out 100%, where other policies will go ahead and pay out. If you have a $10,000 whole life plan and 2 months later, for whatever reason, you pass away, it pays out 100%. And then there also is what's called graded, and those will do different percentages for those 2-3 years. So it looks like I'm out of time. As always, remember at Matt Libby Insurance, we can cover you from head to toe. Please go to YouTube and subscribe to the Insurance Matchmaking channel. That helps me get the word out to others that don't hear me here on the radio. So till then, have a great day, and we'll talk next week.
You've been listening to Insurance Matchmaking with Matt Libby, your path to health, life, and Medicare coverage with Matt Libby Insurance.